Part 62. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Bulletin Liang. Chapter 611. 2 days later, Henry's goods arrived directly at Barren Country. Owen is an officer in the munitions department of the beautiful country stationed in Barren Country, responsible for counting and warehousing arms. Pry open. Owen asked his soldiers to pry open the green box with white letters that still smelled like paint. There were several M16 rifles scattered in the box. What made Owen frown was that there was something wrong with these guns. In the past, the goods were neatly arranged and exuded a faint smell of gun oil. At first glance, they looked like new goods that had not been out of the factory for a long time. This time the goods were not only scattered, but even the paint on the butt of the gun was almost gone. He stepped forward and picked up an M16, and pulled the bolt directly. Click. In Owen's surprised eyes, the bolt was stuck halfway. This scene directly made Owen's eyes twitch. The broken guns in the hands of the damn Baron rebels were 100 times better than this. Owen, who did not believe in evil, took out another M16 again, but this time it was not jammed. Bullet. Owen asked the soldier to pry open the bullet box and take out the bullet. He pressed the bullet into the magazine and aimed at the target not far away. Click, click, click. The bullet did not shoot out as usual, but got stuck directly in the barrel of the gun. Owen angrily pulled the bolt, took out the bullet and looked at it carefully. The primer of the bullet was obviously dented, which meant there was a problem with the bullet. He tossed the bullets to the soldiers and told them to get rid of them. The soldier opened the bullet and poured the gunpowder into the tray. "Sir, this is not gunpowder, it's all humming sand." The soldier swore that he had never seen anything like this before. The arms dealer of this batch was so shady that he even saved on gunpowder. It is conceivable that if a soldier goes to war with such a weapon, it is no different from sending someone's head thousands of miles away. At this time, Owen's face turned pale. He knew that something was serious and asked the soldiers to open the entire box of bullets. Without exception, the bullets were filled with sand. "Damn those black-hearted businessmen, I'm going to send them to a military court. This matter has exceeded Irving's management authority, and he must report it to his superiors immediately." A few days later, the lawsuit went directly to the United States Department of Defense. Asshole! What the hell is going on? Is there sand in the bullets and gunpowder? The rifle is still a handmade product with its rifling ground badly. Even the bazooka is reloaded. Tell me who took the order for this batch of goods. If I don't shoot him, I, as the Minister of Defense, will stop doing this. The Minister of Defense was so angry that he scolded his mother. Such a scandal actually appeared when he was about to retire. Didn't this make him look embarrassed? "Minister, you know, orders from the Middle East are from the New World." Scott glanced at William and shrugged. "Minister, there has never been anything wrong with New World's goods. There must be something fishy about this. I do know that Minister Scott grabbed a batch of orders from New World last time. Maybe there was something wrong with that batch of goods." William snorted without showing any weakness and glared at Scott. The Minister of Defense looked at the two hostile people with a cold face. "I don't care how you two argue, but it can't affect the beautiful country. I will let people investigate this matter. Until the investigation is clear, you two can't stay here or there. Go." The Minister of Defense immediately went down to arrange an investigation, and only William and Scott were left in the room. "William, I'm afraid you're going to capsize in the gutter this time," Scott sneered. "Henry's plan has been fully told to him. This batch of defective products is a thunderstorm, and New World is the best scapegoat. Oh, let's see who wins." Of course William relied on Li Qing's plan. "The timing of the thunderstorm is just right now, and I guess the New World is holding a press conference now. Here, we accuse the American military of not fulfilling the contract, which has caused our New World to suffer huge losses. I appeal again. Li Qing smiled as he watched Yuri accuse the beautiful country's military with snot and tears, and nodded. I have to say, just for this performance, Yuri can win an Academy Award. I didn't expect Yuri to be good at acting. He's better than me. Crow stood next to Li Qing, watching Yuri's performance on TV with interest. Zhang Dongzhi glanced at Crow. You can pull me down, you can't even speak English. Crow said unconvinced, ah, you can do it, your face will take up most of the screen. Seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel again, Li Qing coughed lightly. The two looked at each other and snorted at the same time. Yuri clarified the origin of the shipment at the press conference. Now the entire United States Arms knows that the shipment was not from the New World. But it also caused a lot of trouble. Some arms dealers who smelled it began to approach the military for cooperation, intending to steal meat from the New World like Henry did. But they never expected that all this was arranged by William and Li Qing. Henry on the other side watched Yuri's speech on the TV with a livid face. This matter did not develop according to his plan at all. Is there a disease in the New World? You would expose this matter. Li Qing is not afraid of affecting the relationship with the military? Madman. He had thought about it but never expected that the New World would expose this matter at a humming press conference. Everyone knows that this batch of goods is not from the New World. If someone finds out that this batch of defective products is his, he will be in big trouble. He picked up the landline on the table and started to contact Efren, but Efren's phone was not connected. This made him feel more and more uneasy. He thought about the whole plan from beginning to end. The only possible mistake was with Efren. Henry calmed down. If Efren really prepared all the handmade goods, he could accept it. It was nothing more than jamming or exploding. As long as there was no big problem with this batch of goods, he would be fine. Maybe it could be a blessing in disguise. After all, he was the first person to tear the New World. Now thinking back, it was a very low idea for the New World to hold a press conference. Not only did it create a gap with the military, but it also gave other arms dealers an opportunity to take advantage of it. It seems that Li Qing was also anxious. But is it really as he thought? The answer is that it is impossible. The Minister of Defense, who had already investigated it, had a gloomy face and could drip water. He held the investigation report in his hand and pushed the door directly in. Minister! Minister! The two deputy ministers stood up respectfully, but their eyes were fixed on the investigation report in the minister's hand. The minister's eyes were full of anger, and he slammed the investigation report on the table without saying a word. William, take a look first. William's heart stomped. Could it be that something went wrong with Li Qing? If there is any mistake, not only will the position of minister be lost, but I will also have to go to military court. Scott curled his lips when he heard the voice, looking like he was sure of victory. What? Minister William, you don't dare to read it? Do you want me to read it to you? Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 612. William gritted his teeth, picked up the investigation report, and read it carefully. It's a blessing, not a curse, it's a curse that cannot be avoided. After investigation, among the military equipment involving us $300 million, except for large items such as armored vehicles and military trucks, which were newly purchased, other categories, firearms, bullets, etc., were old items, and the bullets contain zero gunpowder. Basically there is fine sand on the ground. In addition, most M16 rifles. Source investigation revealed that this batch of goods came from Henry Arms Company and has nothing to do with New World Group. William's face looked solemn at the beginning, but showed a hint of smile at the end. This batch of goods is indeed Henry's. It seems that everything is being implemented according to Li Qing's plan. This time Scott is finished, and the military court is waiting for him. I'd better read it." William calmed down the expression on his face, picked up the investigation report and started to read it. At first, Scott didn't react, but in the end, he became more and more palpitating as he listened. Henry just told him that they were defective products, but didn't tell him to put sand in the bullets. He gradually felt that something was wrong, but he still listened patiently. It was not until he heard that the source of this batch of goods was Henry Arms Company that he was stunned and his mind went blank. But he quickly calmed down, grabbed the investigation report, and read it carefully. Scott could feel Chang Dao's eyes, and the current situation could only be dealt with in a blur. "Minister, aren't orders from the Middle East always from the New World? Which Henry Arms Company is it?" The minister glared at him fiercely and turned on the TV with the remote control in his hand. On the TV, Yuri's accusations have not stopped, crying about the unethical competitive behavior of Henry Arms Company. It's over, it's over." Scott knew that it was all over this time. House of Cards Haranda collaborated with him to design a new world. Unexpectedly, he was counter-designed by Li Cheng. "Minister, this has nothing to do with me." Scott looked at the soldiers pushing in the door with an ugly expression on his face. "Whether it matters or not, we will wait until the military court." The minister waved his hand with a cold face. Two soldiers stepped forward and carried Scott out of the office. Seeing Scott being carried out like a bereaved dog, William looked a little confused. He knew that Scott was finished. "William, it seems that Scott can't work for the time being. I hope you can share more." When Scott disappeared from the office, the minister stood up from his seat, looked at William and said with a smile. Then he patted his seat and said, "You still have to make many contributions to this beautiful country. I also received your gift, I like it very much." William's pupils moved slightly, and now he felt that Li Cheng was more suitable as a politician than himself. It was after listening to Li Cheng's suggestion that just the day before, William had quietly placed a bearer check of $30 million in the mailbox of the minister's house. The wax seal on the envelope is his seal. He remembered Li Cheng's words again: "There are only two kinds of relationships in this world that are the most reliable, one is money and the other is blood. Since there is no blood bond, there must be a financial bond, otherwise why would others choose you under the same conditions?" William came back to his senses. "Of course, Your Excellency Minister. I will dedicate everything I have to this beautiful country." The two looked at each other and smiled, saying nothing. This matter was suppressed within the military. The military did not allow such a scandal to be spread, as it would affect the image of the military. Of course, the top military officials were very angry about this matter. Not only did they remove a deputy minister of defense, Henry, the nominal person in charge of this matter, would not let it go easily. On the third day, the news was broadcast that Henry Sapa, the head of Henry Arms Company, was shot dead by the police for resisting arrest. This shocked the entire arms circle of the beautiful country, and they all withdrew their small actions against the Middle East arms trade. And Li Cheng once again showed the world the strength of the New World. David and Efren were invited to Li Cheng's manor again. "Yes, I'm very happy that you can complete the task." Li Cheng pushed 2 glasses of wine in front of the two of them. "Mr. Li Cheng, thank you very much. We actually didn't do anything." Efren looked at Li Cheng flatteringly. He had better information than David. He saw Henry being shot in the head with his own eyes, not because the news said Henry resisted arrest. From this incident, he could understand the New World's ability to cover the sky with one hand. Therefore, he was afraid of death and did not dare to drink the wine given by Li Cheng. David didn't speak, just silently picked up the wine and drank it in one gulp. Li Cheng admired David, who talked less and did more. "Are you interested in following me? You know, hundreds of thousands of dollars are enough for ordinary people, but do you want your daughter to be an ordinary person?" Li Cheng also has a daughter. Of course he knows David's thoughts and wants to give his daughter the best thing he can get. David's face was uncertain, and he was obviously having a fierce ideological struggle. Mr. Li Qing, I also want to join the New World. Efren wanted to come forward with a flattering smile, but Zhang Dongzhou frowned and pushed him away. Li Qing heard Efren's voice, looked up at him, and then glanced at the wine glass on the table. You. Li Qing shook his head, I can let you live until now, which is the greatest gift. When Efren heard Li Qing's words, his smile froze on his face, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed in his eyes. In terms of ability, connections, and character, he is inferior to David in every aspect. To be honest, when I cooperated with David, I just wanted him to be a scapegoat. Yes, yes. Efren's face was smiling again. People had to bow their heads under the eaves. This was someone else's territory. Even if someone cursed at him, he had to endure it. Then, nothing happened. Can I leave? Efren asked in a low voice. Li Qing didn't look at him, just waved his hand gently. Efren turned around and left as if he had been pardoned. What do you think? Li Qing looked at David again. There is only one chance. David glanced at the back of the fat man Efren, picked up another glass of wine on the table and drank it all. Please give me a gun, thank you. Crow looked at his elder brother and nodded, pulled out a pistol from his waist and put it on the table. Don't dirty the flowers and plants in the manor. Remember to return it to me tomorrow. This is a limited edition, Crow muttered in a low voice. David nodded, picked up the gun and walked out. He knew that if he didn't join the New World, he would never have peace after leaving this manor. Without the protection of the New World, Efren would make his family die without a burial place. This was also the purpose of Li Qing releasing Efren, just to force David to make a decision, either he died or Efren died. Efren was a token of his loyalty. For the sake of his family, Efren must die. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 613. Efren walked out of the manor with a gloomy expression. He felt that he had been despised, but he did not dare to show any anger in front of Li Qing and others just now. He could only clench his fists and turn to look at the gate of the manor angrily. He vowed that one day he would make these superior people suffer. Why did he come out? Efren looked at David, who walked out slowly with confusion on his face. David, what? Didn't you join the New World? Well, I still want to live a peaceful life. The money in hand is enough for us to enjoy life for a long time. David shook his head, pretending to be regretful. After hearing what David said, Efren smiled, but in his heart he scolded David for being a fool for rejecting this incredible wealth. But he said calmly, hey, well, although the power of the New World is not small, it offends a lot of people. If you want to live a stable life, not joining is indeed a good choice. David nodded, pretending to agree. This incident almost scared me to death. I will never let Anna and the child live such a life. After listening to David's words, Efren sneered in his heart. Nothing could be so cheap. Since David did not join the New World, he had no worries. After all, those hundreds of thousands of dollars are money, and I can't make it back even if I sell bullets on the street for 10 years. Yes, they are all people with families and children. We need to consider them. Efren turned his eyes. Is Anna still in the suburbs now? It's time to take them back. He asked tentatively. David's eyes froze and he couldn't help but clenched his fists. It seemed that Efren really didn't intend to let them go. You must know that Efren is very familiar with street gangsters, and it is not easy to kidnap them. David turned directly into the alley. Efren's attention was on David, so he followed him in without checking. Efren felt something was wrong after taking a few steps. David, where are you going? Go to hell. Do you want to come together? David looked at Efren with his big white teeth. Efren's heart skipped a beat. He looked at David warily, and then turned to look at his surroundings. Already dozens of meters away from the entrance of the alley, there is a dead end at the other end, with walls covered with unknown vines on both sides. Hey, David, stop making trouble. It's almost dark now, and I still have things to do. Efren glanced at David and smiled cautiously. Well, I'm not making trouble. I forgot to tell you that although I haven't joined the New World now, I can join the New World after I kill you. And you, Efren, are my certificate of submission. David sneered and pulled out the pistol from his waist, crack-loaded the gun and opened the safety in one go. Efren stopped laughing immediately. David, what are you doing? We are friends, and I made you rich. David stared at Efren. Oh, you just want to use me as a scapegoat. Tisk tisk, I didn't expect you to hold grudges. You still remember the grudges you had when you were a child to this day, but I really want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I would always be the salesman living at the bottom. David thought clearly. He could work hard for survival all his life, but his daughter could not. He wanted to give his daughter a different life. Efren stared closely at the black hole-like muzzle. Hey, David, calm down, you are not that kind of person. I know you want to live a stable life, but you can't kill people. Once you have a criminal record, you can never go back. I admit that I did have that thought before, but these days we live and eat together, and I have already regarded you as a friend. He pretended to smile kindly and slowly approached David, but what he was thinking about was how to seize David's gun. Oh. It's true. Efren felt happy when he saw David hesitate and touched his nose. He was only one step away from the gun. As long as he moved fast enough, David would die. Bang. Efren's forehead was pierced by a bullet, and he still had a look of astonishment on his face. Perhaps he didn't believe that David really dared to shoot. Huh, Efren, you've never noticed that you touch your nose subconsciously when you lie. This is a small detail that David discovered during the communication with Efren, and even Efren himself did not notice it. Huh. Looking at the body lying on the ground, David let out a breath. This was his first time killing someone. He knew that the other party also wanted to kill him, but he still felt a little uncomfortable. Several men in black appeared at the entrance of the alley and came directly to Efren's body without saying a word. David knew that this was the person sent by the New World to dispose of the corpse. He shook his head mockingly. Now he could not get rid of the New World. He stood up, put the gun back into his waist, and walked straight out of the alley. At the home of Deputy Interior Minister Haranda. Haranda already knew about Scott, but he didn't expect that the plan with Scott would go wrong. Fortunately, Scott didn't involve him, and he was safe for the time being. It's just that he doesn't know how much Li Qing knows about this matter. According to his estimation, Li Qing has a high probability of knowing his existence. Damn it, Haranda slammed his fist on the desk. House of Cards' attitude towards Li Qing is not very clear. Some people have always remained neutral and believe that Li Qing has little influence on the politics of the beautiful country. But he and the big guys behind him didn't think so. Through the Hebrew incident, it was shown that Li Qing had influence on the military. That's why he promised the Hebrew group to suppress Li Qing as much as possible. Now he has done something wrong and trapped his partner Scott. It seems that I have to broaden my mind a little bit. He knew that it would be extremely difficult to get rid of Li Qing now. The big guys of House of Cards also called him not long ago to warn him not to deliberately target New World. Li Qing, he should not be provoked now. He turned his attention back to William, the Deputy Minister of Defense. Now it's not long before the minister's term is changed. If he is taken down, it is equivalent to cutting off part of the roots of New World. As long as there is a crack in Li Qing's network of relationships, there will definitely be other people coveting New World's industry. By then, Haranda couldn't help laughing. Just when Haranda was planning to get rid of William, Li Qing was not idle here either. All the information about Haranda was already in front of him. Haha, no wonder this guy is pro-Hebrew, it turns out he has a quarter of Hebrew blood. Li Qing leaned on the boss chair, crossed his legs and looked at Haranda's information. House of Cards is just a loose alliance that keeps each other warm. Most people in it have their own political stances. There are pro-Hebrew forces, pro-Mao forces, and even pro-China forces. So it is not surprising that Haranda is pro-Hebrew. What makes Li Qing scratch his head is how to get rid of Haranda and then lead to the real enemy in House of Cards. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 614. Since his political enemy Scott was brought to the military court, William has been in high spirits. The situation of the entire Ministry of Defense has become much clearer, and many businesses that were not under his charge before are now under his charge. The number of people waiting to report in front of his door has nearly doubled compared to before. The officials of the Ministry of Defense are not stupid. They know that William is very likely to be the next minister, and they all come to the front. Let the people outside disperse. It's not an urgent matter, let them come later. William waved to the secretary and said. Although the minister does not come here to work often, he still has to be careful. If the minister sees it, he will definitely feel uncomfortable. The secretary took William's coat and hung it on the hanger carefully. Okay, Minister William. He walked out with brisk steps. William's status has risen, and as his secretary, of course, he has also benefited from it. There are indeed many people who have tried to build relationships with him and make friends with him these days. William put on his glasses and started his day's work. The documents waiting for his signature were piled high, but he still habitually took out the newspaper and read it for 10 minutes first. An envelope fell out of the Gotham Times in the United States. William didn't care. These days, someone has been giving him gifts in various ways. Interesting. Usually, there is a name on the envelope, but there is nothing written on this envelope. William shook his head and frowned even more. The gifts given to him were basically bearer checks, and few people gave him cash directly. Besides, how much money can there be in an envelope of cash? William tore open the envelope and poured out the contents, only to see photos sliding out of it. William's face changed drastically when he saw the photos. These were all photos of him kissing his mistress. If the scandal is exposed, the position of Minister of Defense will be forgotten. Damn it! It is estimated that the other party has been eyeing him for a long time, because he is very cautious and has not been with his mistress for several months. But he soon calmed down. These photos have not been exposed yet, which means that the other party has something in mind. As long as you give the other party what they want and get the negatives, you will not be in danger. William flipped through the envelope and photos again. There was no information on them. It seemed that the other party was more cautious than he thought. Ding-ling-ling. The phone on the right suddenly rang, startling William, who was thinking. Hello? Who is this? Mr. William, did you receive the photos? The voice processed by the voice changer sounded. William's heart moved. Yeah. I didn't expect Mr. William to be so strong at old age, the other end of the phone said obscenely. You are very brave, aren't you afraid that I will investigate your number? William whispered. Humph, Mr. William, do you dare to expose it? Besides, do you think I would be so stupid? Call you with my own phone. The disdainful voice from the other side made William feel blocked in his heart. He really didn't dare to trouble Faberla. That group of hyenas is not easy to deal with. If they get the photos, I am afraid I will cry to death. Tell me, how can I return the negatives to me? In William's view, this person called to threaten him, wanting money or helping him do something. Hey, smooth. I want $10 million, cash in old notes. I will give you the place to trade at the same time tomorrow, I hope you don't miss it. The mysterious man hung up the phone without waiting for William to speak. William put away the scattered photos on the table and wrote down the other party's phone number on a piece of white paper. He called the secretary and asked him to check the owner of the number. In the end, as expected, the owner of the number was a very ordinary old woman, and the call was also made by a stranger who borrowed her mobile phone yesterday. William thought about it and felt that there was something fishy about this matter. It would be fine if the other party was just for money, but he was afraid that the mysterious man would use the photos in his hand to destroy his promotion. So he immediately called Li Cheng. In his heart, only Li Cheng could be trusted now. After all, the two of them were considered to be in the same boat. Li Cheng, this morning. He told Li Cheng the whole story. Li Cheng listened with relish on the other end of the phone. For the first time, he knew that William was an old cow eating young grass. The most important thing is that this hum still has a master, and this master is working in the Ministry of National Defense of the United States. William actually got together with his subordinate's wife, even Li Cheng had to sigh that the old ones are still the best. Li Cheng, if you laugh again, we will break up. William faintly heard Li Cheng's laughter on the phone, and said angrily. Ahem, no, I didn't laugh, don't wrong me. Li Cheng held back his laughter and said hurriedly. What should I do now? William asked in a low voice, covering the microphone. Don't worry, isn't it just a small matter? Just make the person who threatens you disappear, but you'd better not associate with your little lover anymore, it will be difficult to deal with if someone catches you again. In Li Cheng's opinion, this matter is easy to solve, as long as the person who caused the trouble is solved. Of course, I haven't contacted her in the past few months. I suspect this mysterious person has been watching me for a long time. William was silent for a moment and then asked, we don't know who the other party is yet, what should we do? Leave this to me, tell me the transaction location tomorrow. Don't worry about what happens in the future. Li Cheng thought for a while and said. Now is William's critical moment. No movement is worse than silence. You must know that Li Cheng's subsequent plans are based on William becoming the Minister of Defense. He will never allow William to fail. William thought for a while, and now he had no choice but to trust Li Cheng. It was really not the right time to use military force at this time. At the same time the next day, William, who was waiting anxiously, received another call from the mysterious man. Mr. William, I guess you should be impatient, he. The mysterious man's voice changed. Mechanical voice came from the phone. Don't talk nonsense, the money is already prepared. Tell me the location. And you'd better return the negatives to me, otherwise I will make your death ugly. William gritted his teeth. He has never felt this cowardly attitude since he became the deputy minister. If it weren't for the ministerial throne, William would have wanted to tear him apart with his life. Haha, since I dare to do it, I know your identity. I won't let you find my GG. William frowned, feeling that this mysterious man spoke well. The location is in the trash can next to number 365 Kings Avenue. You put the money in the trash can. Someone from us will naturally pick it up. The mysterious man said again. William didn't have time to think too much and quickly wrote down the location with a pen and paper. Wait, where are my negatives? After we get the money, the negatives will be placed in your mailbox. I don't believe you. Pay the money and deliver the goods. I'm sorry, Mr. William. You can only choose to believe us, and remember that at the same time tomorrow, I will see the money in the trash can. Otherwise, the photo will be given directly to the Gotham Times. Hum. Damn bitchy, William cursed angrily when he heard the busy tone on the phone. After waiting for a while, he calmed down and told Li Qing the location directly. He believed that Li Qing would definitely be able to figure out the mysterious person behind it. No matter what, he will make the mysterious man pay the price. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 615. At dusk, the afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled on King's Avenue, making the entire avenue look golden. It was the peak time for getting off work, and pedestrians were in a hurry. People wanted to go home and have a good rest after a busy day. In a gray Ford commercial vehicle, two young men were staring at the trash can not far away. These two people were Gao Jin's subordinates. "Hey, fatty, don't just eat, keep an eye on that trash can. If you delay the boss's business, you and I will be in trouble." "I've been watching, don't worry." Another slightly fat younger brother, holding a hot dog in his hand, kept stuffing it into his mouth, but his eyes were always staring at the trash can. $10 million of old counterfeit banknotes have been placed in the trash can, and now they are just waiting for the target to take the bait. At this time, a black guy standing not far from the door of King's Avenue 365 was observing the movements around him. Not long ago, he saw someone put a black backpack in, but out of caution he waited for 10 minutes. "Hey, Harlem, can I go get it?" The black guy lowered his head and muttered while grabbing his collar. It turned out that there was a microphone on his collar. "Come on, James, I need to observe again," Harlem's voice came from the headset. But the black guy named James couldn't help it. "Harlem, I'm so nervous that I want to pee now, please." James paced back and forth, and the nervousness stimulated the brain to make a stress response. The longer he waited, the more he wanted to pee. "Okay, be careful. Get the money and get back to the car immediately." James nodded and started walking towards the trash can. His action quickly attracted the attention of the younger brother in the business car. The thin man pointed at James, who was staggering like a street kid, and said, "Hey, that black man is in trouble." The fat man swallowed the food in his mouth, raised his head and looked at James in the distance seriously. He was wearing baggy clothes and pants, with metal ornaments all over his neck and a black cap tilted on his head. "Well, it's just a common black street urchin, Before the fat man finished speaking, he saw James quickly take out a backpack from the trash can, look around, and quickly run towards a silver Chevrolet sedan on the street. The thin man quickly started the car and chased after the Chevrolet sedan, reporting the license plate number and route directly through the wireless intercom. The fat man picked up the taser and turned off the safety. This operation was instructed by the superiors, and they had to leave a live person. The two people in the silver Chevrolet in front did not pay attention to the tracking of the commercial vehicle behind. All they saw were US dollars, and even Harlem, who was driving, couldn't help but look at the full backpack of banknotes. Looking at the rolls of US dollars, the two people never stopped smiling. "Harlem, you are amazing. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been able to get so much money." James held the US dollar rolls in both hands and said ecstatically. "By the way, how do we give the negative film they want?" James remembered something and continued to ask. Harlem showed an inexplicable smile. "Give. Since he can take out 10 million so readily, I found that we have less." "James, 10 million for one person, or 10 million for two people? How do you choose?" He didn't expect it to be so easy. He was afraid that William would call the police, but now it seems that the other party also has concerns. Only a fool would not take advantage of the moment to blackmail more. Speaking of which, this matter is also quite bizarre. These photos and negatives were taken from his father's darkroom. The photos were just developed and are being dried. But the negatives were not taken and have been placed in the darkroom. He saw William on TV news, so he had the next plan. First, he spent a lot of effort to get William's office phone number, and everything behind was a natural result. Learning from the plot in the movie, everything was arranged. What they didn't expect was that William actually took the bait. "Damn, 10 million, we are rich," James shouted directly. Harlem also smiled. In the future, he finally didn't have to live by the broken photo studio. With this money, he had an unlimited future. The car soon arrived in front of an apartment, which was rented by the two in advance. Shortly after they entered the apartment, several cars stopped at the door of the apartment. Gao Jin got out of the car, and his subordinates hurried forward. "Brother Jin, they are in room 304. Gao Jin nodded, looked up at the apartment, and sighed. Tisk tisk, two young boys dared to threaten the Deputy Minister of Defense. I have to say, a free and beautiful country. He walked into the apartment first, and the younger brother behind him took out his gun and followed closely. In room 304, Harlem and James poured all the US$ on the bed and rolled on the US$ excitedly. James opened a roll of US$ and threw it into the air. "Haha, I never thought that one day I would have so much money." "Yeah, this is enough to support Mary for a lifetime." Harlem took the US$ and put them in front of his nose, sniffing deeply. "This is the smell of freedom." "Hey, Harlem, keep calling tomorrow, we will continue to ask for 10 million. It's so cool, I didn't expect money to come so easily." James rolled over and looked at Harlem. "Well, blackmail him again tomorrow. But I'm a little worried about my father. He's out these 2 days, we have to wash the photos and hang them up again before he comes back." Harlem was scared when he thought of his father's belt. "Huh? You mean not to return the negatives to him?" James was stunned and asked. "Of course, he doesn't know who we are anyway. We treat this as if it never happened." Harlan nodded. From the beginning, he had no intention of returning the negatives. But, James had some doubts. He wanted to blackmail him again and return the negatives to William. After all, he is the Deputy Minister of Defense. If he gets angry, it will not be difficult to find out his identity. "No, we have so much money, where can't we go?" Harlan grabbed a handful of dollar bills and let them slip from his fingers. Before James could reply, the door to the room was violently broken down, and some burly men walked in from the outside. Harlem and James were startled, and they were about to grab the pistol on the bedside table. "Don't move, I'll beat you to death." An Asian man wearing a windbreaker walked in, and all the sturdy men quickly gave way. Harlem and James had guns pressed against their heads, and their faces were pale. The cold barrels of the guns made them clearly realize that the other party was coming to their door. Okay. Be careful of fire. I'll give you the money, as well as the photos and negatives." Harlan waved his hand quickly. Gao Jin smiled and picked up a dollar bill from the bed. "Hey, I can have as many of these things as I want." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 616. Hee, you touched someone who should not be touched. At this time, even Gao Jin secretly smacked his lips. The young people in the United States dare to do anything. At his age, he didn't have the courage to blackmail the Deputy Minister of Defense of a country. "Tell me, where did you get the photos?" Gao Jin threw a bunch of photos on the bed covered with US$. It was impossible for these two little bastards to get the photos. There must be someone behind them. Harlan's face was pale, and he still pursed his lips and refused to speak. He regretted it now. He thought the problem was too simple. Thinking that he had evidence of William's extramarital affair, William would definitely not use official means, but he didn't expect that the Deputy Minister of Defense would actually hook up with gangsters. This time, not only did he get himself involved, but it was very likely that his father would be implicated. Don't tell? You have guts? Gao Jin raised his hand, and the younger brother behind him immediately took out a pistol with a silencer and neatly performed a skull-opening surgery on the black boy James. Blood and brain matter sprayed all over Harlan's face, scaring him to scream, "Oh, my God! Shit!" Looking at James, who was shot in the head, Harlan came to his senses. He was facing a gangster who killed people without blinking an eye. "Woo," I said, "can you let me go?" Harlan asked, crying in the corner. Gao Jin looked at Harlan's sincere look and shook his head. After all, he was a young man who had just reached adulthood. He was so scared by the death of a person. "That depends on your sincerity. We just want to find out the person behind the photo." Gao Jin raised the photo. Harlan shrank his head. "I got the photo from my father's darkroom, and the negative is also there." "Oh? Your father?" Gao Jin looked at Harlan with interest. "What does your father do?" "A photographer in an old photo studio." "Sorry, I don't know anything, let me go." Harlan looked at Gao Jin carefully with tears in his eyes. "Old photo studio." Although science is advanced now, some nostalgic beautiful Chinese still like to use old-fashioned cameras for photography. Therefore, many old photo studios have been born in Gotham City. No wonder. They still use negatives in this era, Gao Jin muttered in a low voice. "Tell me, where is the photo studio?" "Merlin Photo Studio, 53 Champs-Élysées," Harlan blurted out. If he didn't say it, he would suffer a lot. Gao Jin thought for a while. "You guys deal with the body, I'll take this kid to the photo studio. Anyway, let's get the negatives first, maybe even Harlan's father can be caught." The business car arrived at the Merlin Photo Studio soon. Looking at the sign outside the Merlin Photo Studio that said it was temporarily closed, Gao Jin raised his eyebrows. "Hey, kid, where is your father?" "He went on a business trip." Harlan looked at Gao Jin timidly. The death of his friend really frightened him. Business trip? A photographer from a photo studio on a business trip? Gao Jin felt that something was wrong. Signaling Harlan to open the door, the younger brother took out his gun and walked inside carefully. Under Harlan's guidance, everyone quickly came to the darkroom. There was no change in the darkroom. Everything was the same as when Harlan left. It seemed that his father had never come back. "Where is the film?" Hearing Gao Jin's question, Harlan took a few steps forward, took out the film from the drawer next to the cabinet and handed it to Gao Jin. "Turn on the light." Gao Jin looked at the film carefully under the light. According to his guess, it should be correct. It should be some evidence of William's cheating. Putting it in his pocket, Gao Jin looked at the darkroom with interest. There were some family photos hanging in the darkroom. Is it really a photographer? Gao Jin touched his chin and walked around the darkroom. "Search." Gao Jin gave a direct order. The younger brothers put away their pistols and began to search around the room. Harlan took a look and didn't dare to speak. His father warned him not to enter the darkroom. This time it was a mess. His father must be angry. "Brother Jin, something is going on." The younger brother seemed to have noticed something and waved at Gao Jin. Gao Jin walked over. "What's going on?" The younger brother knocked on the wall, making a hollow sound of dong dong. "There is a mezzanine inside." Gao Jin looked around but didn't find anything special. "Cut it open." Bang bang bang. A series of chirping sounds. The entire mezzanine was exposed, and various long and short guns stood on the shelf. The younger brothers also found some passports from various countries in a suitcase on the shelf. "Wow, look what we found. Luzon, Gaul, John, de Mao." Gao Jin smiled and flipped through the passport. The man on the passport was about 40 years old, with gray hair and a thick beard. "Young man, it seems that your father is not an ordinary person. Obviously, these things indicate that the owner here is not ordinary, and he is very likely a killer or an agent. I just don't know which type Harlan's father is. Seeing this scene, Harlan was stunned. He never knew that there were so many weapons in his home. He also began to doubt the identity of his father Brown. No wonder his father never let him enter the darkroom or touch anything inside. Interesting, it seems that things are more complicated than we thought, Gao Jin murmured. Originally, he wanted to get the negatives and then kill Harlem, but now it seems necessary to spare his life. At least he can't die before catching his father Brown. Pack this place and let's go. Gao Jin threw his passport into a box filled with US dollars. Now that this man's weapons arsenal has been discovered, there is no reason to leave it behind for him. After packing up his weapons, Gao Jin left two younger brothers to observe the surroundings and notify him immediately if Brown was discovered. He rushed to the manor with Harlem, and he wanted to report this matter to his elder brother. An hour later, Li Qing frowned and looked at the passport in his hand. This person is most likely an agent of Verbally. Let Winston check it out. Unlike Gao Jin, Li Qing guessed that this person was an agent just by looking at him. Brother, what should we do now? Gao Jin asked with a frown. Killing a Fubole and killing a killer are completely different things. Phobally is too difficult to deal with. Even if he dies, he will stick to them like a dogskin plaster. If it is not necessary, they don't want to have anything to do with Phobally. Li Qing turned his attention to Harlan, who was standing aside with his shoulders hunched. There are some things where there is no need to kill someone, just grasp his weakness. Besides, not killing has a greater effect on us than killing, so why should we bother? Li Qing guessed that Brown was most likely a subordinate of Haranda and should have done a lot of dirty work for him. This evidence was exactly what Li Qing needed. However, this needs further confirmation, so catching Brown is the key. Once the relationship between Brown and Hollanda is confirmed, William will naturally not let Hollanda go without taking action on this matter. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 617. The early summer breeze gently blew across my face. Many people came to Gotham to travel at this time of year. The Gotham airport was bustling with people. There were many tour guides holding small flags and leading tourists to and fro. The tourists' cheerful laughter was everywhere. A middle-aged man about 1.8 meters tall hurriedly passed by them. Unlike the smiling faces of these tourists, he had a solemn look on his face. Harlan, this kid, hasn't contacted me for a whole day. Did something happen? Brown muttered in a low voice. If Harlan wasn't his own son, he would have sent him to the juvenile detention center long ago to save him from causing trouble all day long. As a father, he had to run around on missions, and his son Harlan was also in a free-range state, so he was naturally led astray by street thugs. He and his black friend asked me to help clean up their butts. I don't know if he got into trouble again this time and hid. Brown found his car in the airport parking lot, threw his backpack on the passenger seat, and drove quickly towards the photo studio. This mission was urgent, and Haranda's work was only half done. Fortunately, Haranda promised to let him retire peacefully after finishing this task, and he would have time to take care of Harlan at that time. Although he knew that this matter involved military leaders, he still reluctantly took it. At the same time, in several cars parked on the roadside not far from Merlin Photo Studio, the members of the New World were concentrating on watching the pedestrians around them. From Harlan's mouth, he learned that his father often went on business trips, but usually would not come back for more than 3 days. So Gao Jin arranged a team of people to wait here. I've been watching for a day. When will this bastard come back? The fat man rubbed his red eyes. Since the shift change this morning, he has not closed his eyes, and now he is too sleepy. Why are you nagging? Aren't we all the same? Keep an eye on it. It will be troublesome if you miss someone. The short man sitting in the driver's seat closed his eyes and scolded. The fat man wanted to say something, but he saw a car slowly parked not far from the Merlin photo studio. They had arrived at the photo studio, but Brown did not get out of the car. His intuition as a phobberla for many years told him that something was wrong. There was no residential area around his photo studio. There were traces of a water truck passing by on the tires of several commercial vehicles that had just passed by and parked on the roadside. According to the law of water trucks, these vehicles had been parked for at least 10 hours. If it was just the car, it could still be explained, but he vaguely saw people's heads moving through the car window. This can only mean that someone has been staring here for a long time, most likely staring at the Merlin photo studio. Damn, who are these people? Out of caution, Brown did not get out of the car, but parked the car at the door of the Merlin photo studio. Watching the movements of several cars in the rearview mirror, Brown's behavior of not getting out of the car quickly attracted the attention of the fat man. There is something wrong with that car. Let's go down and take a look. The fat man pulled out the gun from his waist, opened the safety, and loaded the bullet. The short man also opened the car door and jumped down, just as the two slowly approached the car. The car suddenly roared and drove away quickly. Chase, chase, chase! The other people on the New World side also found something wrong and drove directly in the direction of the car. The fat man and the short man also got in the car and reported the matter directly to Gao Jin. Gao Jin walked to his eldest brother Li Qing and whispered a few words. Li Qing smiled and said, "It seems that the phobberla is back. Return the phone to that Harlem and let him call his father. Whether he can survive depends on his position in his father's heart." In Li Qing's heart, Brown is very important. He is involved in Li Qing's next plan. An agent must love his son very much if he wants to keep his son by his side at the risk of being exposed. He believes that Brown will definitely compromise. At this time, Brown is starting a chase, but unfortunately he is the one being chased. The other party actually shot at him in the downtown area without a complete investigation. It was too cruel. In his impression, only black gangs who are not afraid of death, or large organizations similar to the Mafia and the New World would dare to do this. Thinking that his son Harlan had not contacted him for a whole day, he understood everything. That little bastard had caused trouble for him again. Shit, if I had known this would happen, I should have shot him into the wall. Brown slapped the steering wheel hard and cursed loudly. It was impossible to get rid of the other party in a short time. The other party was very familiar with the terrain of this area. Dinglingling Brown, who was concentrating on observing the road conditions, was startled by the sudden ring of his mobile phone. He didn't intend to answer it, but when he saw that the number was his son, he immediately answered the call. "Damn Harlan, where are you?" Although Brown was very angry, he was still worried about the safety of his son. "Father, father, save me. I won't dare to do it again." Harlan's crying voice came from the phone. "What do you want to do? If you have the guts, come at me, don't hurt my son." Hearing Harlan's crying voice, Brown immediately said anxiously, "We seem to be coming towards you. If you have the guts, stop the car." Crow tilted his head and said to the microphone. Brown's expression froze, and he was choked and speechless. After a moment, Brown calmed down and asked, "Who are you? What do you want to do?" "Haha, who are we? Didn't you have a guess in your mind a long time ago?" Gao Jin took the phone and laughed. Brown remained silent. He had offended many people. The other party's behavior was obviously not to kill him, but to get some information from him. Just as he was trying hard to guess the other party's identity in his mind, Gao Jinyu said, "Okay, I overestimated you. Here's a little hint, photos." Brown narrowed his eyes directly. New World? He really didn't expect it to be the New World. Although he had long known that William and the New World had a very close relationship, his plan had not yet been implemented. Could it be that the New World was foresighted? Harlan had also heard about the New World, but he didn't expect it to come into direct contact so soon. After all, his plan to discredit William was still in progress. It can only be said that the New World is more powerful than he imagined. Shaking his head, Brown parked the car directly on the side of the road. There was no point in running away now, unless he could ignore Harlan's life and death. Don't hurt Harlan. I did it all. It has nothing to do with him. I'll go back to see you. Brown hung up the phone after speaking. He opened the car door and walked out, took out his pistol and threw it aside, raising his hands. The leading commercial vehicle stopped just in front of him. Two people jumped out and pushed him into the car, then sped away. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 618. Brown-haired, born in 1967, currently affiliated with the 2nd Division of the CIA in the United States. Li Qing looked at Brown's message, and raised his head to look at Brown wearing a black hood. He, take off his hood. Li Qing sat on the sofa and nodded at Brown. The hood was taken off, and Brown squinted for a long time before he could see the person in front of him clearly. Li Qing. Brown's pupils shrank slightly. It was the first time he saw this king of war in reality. Yes, colleagues secretly called Li Qing this way. Where there is war, there must be New World's munitions, so they privately called him King of War. In the archives of the Forbali branch alone, there is a whole cabinet of information about the New World and Li Qing. Untie him. Li Qing looked at Brown with interest. Immediately, a younger brother stepped forward and cut the restraints on Brown's wrists with a dagger. Brown touched his wrist, which was deeply bruised, and said, "Thank you." A strange look appeared on his face. "Mr. Lee, I'd like to ask how I was exposed." He didn't know the reason, but he was unwilling to accept it. He had just developed the photos, and before the plan was implemented, his son was kidnapped. Who can he go to for justice? Li Qing smiled but said nothing, but a group of younger brothers beside him laughed. Brown was a little confused when he heard their laughter. This question didn't seem so funny, right? Tisk tisk, you have a good son. If I were you, I would hang him on the beam and beat him. Crow looked at Brown with sympathy. He would rather not have such a son who cheated his father. Your son Harlem took the photos to threaten Deputy Minister of Defense William, and extorted $10 million from him. Gao Jin explained with a smile. Brown was like being struck by lightning when he heard this. He stood there with his mouth wide open and motionless. I didn't expect that Harlem would get into such a big trouble in less than 3 days after I went out. Listening to the laughter around him, Brown felt ashamed to death. He was an elite Faberla, but he gave birth to such a brainless son. Harlan was brought into the house at this time. "Father, you finally came to save me." Harlan looked at Brown in surprise. Brown saw that Harlan was so angry that his teeth were about to break. He touched his waist, which was the sweatpants he wore today, and looked around to find something handy. Crow's eyes turned, and he quickly pulled out the 7 wolves from his waist and handed them over. "Remember to return them to me." Then he scratched his head. This sentence was so familiar, as if he had said it before. Brown's eyes lit up when he saw the belt. "I'll give you 2. He grabbed the 7 wolves and walked towards Harlan. Harlan's eyes were full of fear. "Father, what do you want to do?" "Don't, ah." The whole room was filled with Harlan's howling, which really sounded a bit like a wolf's howl from a distance. Half an hour later, Brown stopped panting. "Damn, I'm going to beat you to death, you bastard." It must be said that the quality of 7 wolves is very good, and it is not damaged at all. Brown even looked at the logo printed on it carefully. He will definitely buy a few when he has the chance. Seeing that Brown had had enough, Li Qing smiled and said, "Brown, you are a wise man. Tell me about it." Brown calmed down, tidied his clothes, and said seriously, "I have evidence of Haranda's crime. But these may not be brought to the surface, such as ZZ donations, mineral sharing." Li Qing frowned after listening to Brown's narration. What Brown said are all unspoken rules. If they are put on the surface, it will undoubtedly offend a large number of people. Even William dare not take this risk. Everyone can do this kind of thing, but they can't say it. This is also the reason why Haranda can only choose to start with personal morality even though he has other evidence to drag William into the water. Li Qing frowned. "Haranda has no flaws in personal morality." Brown looked up at him. "He certainly has no flaws in women." Brown's words made Li Qing fall into deep thought. Men are nothing more than two heads, and it is unbelievable that Harlanda has no problems with women. Could it be, with men? Crow blurted out while touching his chin. Crow's words stunned everyone, and then they all laughed. How could it be possible that the Deputy Minister of the Interior? But seeing Brown nodded solemnly, "He is gay." Now everyone was in trouble. A sound. Is it fake? Is it impossible? Damn, is this okay? Brown's words made Li Qing frown even tighter. This matter cannot be used as a blasting point. Everyone in the United States knows that sexual orientation issues cannot be mentioned casually. If the fact that he is gay is exposed, he may become a weak image and be supported by the general public. Li Qing's goal was to get rid of him, not to get him promoted, raise his salary, or kill his wife. Any other information? Brown shook his head regretfully. Harlanda had asked him to do a lot of dirty things, but this guy was very smart and could always get away with it. Even Faberla would have a hard time finding out anything related to him. Li Qing closed his eyes and knocked on the table. Everyone was quiet at this time. Those who were familiar with him knew that their eldest brother was thinking now and they must not make any noise to disturb him. After about 5 minutes, Li Qing suddenly opened his eyes. He is gay, so his wife is the breakthrough point. Harlanda's success today is due to the support of his father-in-law, who is the former vice president and has basically left his political legacy to him. Tisk tisk, his wife seems to be only in her 40s. I don't know how she could tolerate him for so long. Brown, who is Harlanda's boyfriend? Brown shook his head regretfully. He really didn't know. Harlanda was very secretive about this matter. Li Qing glanced at him and knew that he didn't need to lie now. Take him and his son away and treat them well. Li Qing waved his hand. Brown, you are a smart man. It's useless even if you run away. Brown supported the miserable Harlan and nodded. I know. He exposed Harlanda's biggest secret. If Harlanda knew it, he would not let him go. It is safest to stay in the territory of the New World now. After all the strangers left, Li Qing smiled and said, "It seems that we have to use the beauty trap again." A 40-year-old woman whose husband is gay, Li Qing doesn't believe that this woman doesn't cheat. "Brother, I suggest that Kyandan come. He likes old women." Crow touched his chin and suggested. "Not appropriate. Kyandan is very busy in the autonomous province of Java now." Li Qing felt it was inappropriate and shook his head. "Then let Gishan come. This kid has a good physique and will definitely do it," Crow continued to suggest. "Alas, distant water can't save a nearby fire. This matter must be done quickly. It will be bad if Haranda finds out." Li Qing rejected Crow's suggestion again. Then Zhang Dongzhi rolled his eyes. "Don't look at me. I only have the little lawyer in my heart." Gao Jin saw Crow's gaze and waved his hands repeatedly. "Xiao Wan is in Gotham. I don't want to die yet." The room fell into a dead silence. Crow panicked immediately. Brother Li Qing and other brothers glanced at him from time to time. Don't look at me. I don't like old women. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 619. Zhang Dongzhou came to Crow's side with a wooden face and patted him on the shoulder sincerely. Crow, at this time when the organization is in crisis, don't let your guard down. You must know that you are the 7 times a night man in the New World, and this matter belongs to you. What's more, you are also a famous prop master. If you don't go, others are not eligible. Crow was confused when he heard this. Since when has the organization been in crisis? And don't you always laugh at me as a 7 times a night man? Now it's a compliment. He immediately raised his hand to protest to his eldest brother Li Qing. Brother, if even I am dispatched, others will think that there is no one in our new world. There are so many younger brothers at my command, so they can go too. Li Qing glanced at him with a smile. You are right. Crow put a smile on his face after hearing this, and his elder brother still understood him. Sigh, but you are the only one who is the king of dance in the New World. I heard that the rich woman likes to dance very much, and most of the men who are usually with her are her dance partners. This job belongs to you. Little Crow. Wu Wu was silent for a moment. Seeing the expectant looks of his eldest brother Li Qing and the brothers, he gritted his teeth and said, "Oh, I can't help it. This is my only advantage, and you guys discovered it? Don't worry, brother, I will definitely win it." He patted his chest and suddenly realized that it was not a good thing for a person to have such obvious advantages. Tisk tisk, it's so good, but there are all kinds of troubles. Crow shook his head and sighed. Li Qing. All the younger brothers. The next thing happened naturally, as if the crow had been given a shot of blood. He returned to the apartment with a lot of information about Haranda's wife. It means that you have to study hard all night, and you must hit it with one hit. Isabella. Crow held a photo of Haranda's wife Isabella. The woman in the photo looked very good, at least it suited his taste. With a high nose bridge, blue eyes, and brown hair, especially the aura of a high-class woman, Crow suddenly felt that age didn't seem to be a problem. Picking up the information again, Crow read it carefully. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you be victorious in every battle. Isabella is just 40 years old and comes from a wealthy family. Her mother is the daughter of a car magnate and her father is Carter, the former Vice President of the United States. She is not only a graduate of Oxford University, but also a famous philanthropist. Well, he has a good personality, a good family background, and he is caring. Is this Haranda a humming fool? He is also a bender. The crow muttered curses at Haranda. After reading the information, Crow came up with a plan to contact Isabella. According to information, Isabella goes to the orphanage in Salem district every Saturday to volunteer. He can use this opportunity to get in touch with Isabella. Just do what you say. Crow is an activist and directly told his best friend Zhang Dongzhou children's choose the plan. The sun was shining brightly on Saturday morning, and the orphanage in Salem district looked as usual. A classic Ford car produced in 1979 was parked on the street in front of the orphanage, and Isabella walked down wearing a red vest. She has made it a habit to come here every Saturday. Before she arrived at the orphanage, she heard the noisy laughter of the children, and she took a few steps quickly out of curiosity. This orphanage is slightly remote and shabby, and politicians generally don't like to choose to show off here. When you open the courtyard door, you can see several cartoon dolls such as Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse playing games with the children. She looked around again and saw no cameras. This was not a show. Seeing the children's heartfelt smiles, Isabella couldn't help but raise the corners of her lips. After all, those who actually come here to volunteer are the ones who truly do charity. Isabella soon joined in the game, and they did not stop until 2 hours later, when the children were tired of playing. Isabella began to help the orphanage director distribute mineral water. "Come, have a drink of water." Isabella handed the Mickey Mouse doll a bottle of water. Only then did Crow take off the doll's head, and the sweat on his head flowed down his hair, covering his face. "Thank you, hello. My name is Chen Tianxiang, from Xiangjiang," China Crow smiled and stretched out his hand. Isabella smiled, looking at the crow's embarrassed look. She felt a little good in her heart. "Thank you for coming to play with these children." Isabella glanced at the crow, and then glanced around the tired and sweaty dolls. Crow unscrewed the bottle cap and handed the water to Isabella's hand, then picked up another bottle from the ground. This kind of gentlemanly behavior made Isabella's favor increase a little bit. He unscrewed the bottle cap and took a sip of water. "No need to thank me, I longed for someone to play with me like this when I was a kid." The crow looked into the distance, as if lost in memories. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were." Isabella brushed the hair hanging in front of her forehead. Woo Woo waved his hand. "It's nothing. I have been in a welfare home in Xiangjiang since I was a child. The conditions are not as good as here. At that time, eating was a problem. The happiest days were when the teachers at the orphanage took us to the amusement park. Did you know? At that time, our favorite toys were big dolls like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck." Isabella looked at the crow curiously. "Huh? Why? You don't like Ferris wheels? Roller coasters? And ballooning? Don't you boys all like these?" Isabella also remembered the scene of her going to the amusement park, with a curved mouth. "I like it. But in the whole amusement park, only interacting with dolls is free." Crow smiled, his words were a little low. Isabella also restrained her smile, and her heart was also sour. "I'm sorry. Haha, it's nothing, so I take my friends to the orphanage whenever I have time. This is the 9th place I've come." Crow waved his hand and told him not to worry. Zhang Dongziu, who was panting not far away, rolled his eyes when he heard this. Damn, starting from Wednesday, Crow dragged him to various orphanages to volunteer. "I almost broke my waist these days. I kept complaining in my heart, damn it, you have to drag me as a wingman to pick up girls." Isabella looked at Crow seriously, and suddenly felt that this man had a little charm. "Thank you for everything you have done for the children," Isabella whispered. "No, I should say that the children are accompanying me, and they are also healing my childhood." The crow looked at Isabella and said seriously. I was stunned for a moment when I heard this sentence with my ears perked up. Well, why did he say that his big brother quotes disappeared these days? It turned out that this guy took it to recite. Isabella was shocked when she heard this sentence for the first time. She didn't expect such a rough man to say such philosophical words. "You are such an interesting person." Isabella looked at her watch. "Sorry, see you next time. I'm leaving." "Okay. Can you leave me a contact number? Don't get me wrong. The main thing is that I have the opportunity to come with you next time." The crow smiled innocently. Isabella thought about it and smiled. "Sure. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all." Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 620. Isabella found a piece of paper, wrote her number on it, and handed it to Crow with a smile. "See you next time." Crow stood up and waved at her. "See you next time." Watching Isabella's figure slowly disappear, Crow looked at the number on the note with a silly smile on his face. Zhang Dongziu held the head of the Donald Duck doll and quietly approached Crow, frowning and looking at him in confusion. "Crow, there's something wrong with you. Ah, you walk without making any sound. Don't you know that scaring people to death is scary?" Crow was frightened and almost jumped up. "You're not right, very wrong, you're not really attracted to this old woman, are you?" Zhang Dongziu looked at Crow in circles. "Tisk, How is it possible? Tisk, impossible. How can you say she's an old woman? She looks very young. The voice of Crow became smaller and smaller, and in the end Zhang Dongzhou didn't know what he was saying. Zhang Dongzhou always felt that the crow was strange today, not like the original crow at all. He looked thoughtfully at the direction where Isabella left. Could it be that the iron tree bloomed? The crow was looking at the phone number in his hand, and didn't hear what Zhang Dongzhou was mumbling. What are you talking about? Oh, nothing, let's start the next plan. What plan? That's called an encounter, the crow said dissatisfiedly. Zhang Dongzhou. In view of Isabella's love of dancing, the crow made a second step plan, an encounter. He was very confident in his dancing level and believed that he would definitely win Isabella's heart. Isabella practiced dancing at a fixed time every Monday night. The crow asked Zhang Dongzhou to break Isabella's partner's leg in advance, and also bribed Isabella's dance coach in advance. Isabella, I'm sorry that your dance partner had a car accident today. But I found a new dance partner for you. He is my good friend and just came from abroad. Isabella's dance coach said with a smile. Isabella shrugged her shoulders after hearing this. She didn't care. She could just change her partner. Come on, Chen. Let me introduce you. This is Isabella. The dance coach waved to the crow not far away. Crow came to Isabella and said in surprise, Hey, Miss Isabella, we meet again. Isabella was also a little surprised. Mr. Chen, I didn't expect to meet you here. Haha, it's a bit of a coincidence, but maybe everything is destined. Crow stretched out his hand and shook hands with Isabella. Isabella raised her eyebrows and glanced at Crow. This man always spoke so philosophically. If Zhang Dongzhou was here, his eyes would definitely roll up to the sky again. Has anyone said you are very charming? Isabella covered her mouth and chuckled. Although she is a woman in her 40s, in the eyes of Crow, Isabella's smile has a kind of heart-stirring beauty. Well, I think it's very normal, Crow said pretentiously. At this time, even the dance coach couldn't stand it anymore. Since you know each other, that's great. You practice dancing first, I have something to do. The dance coach quickly said goodbye. He felt that the money he got was a bit hot, and he couldn't pretend any later. After the dance coach left, there were only 2 people left in the dance studio. Isabella walked to the sound system and turned her head to ask, What are we dancing? Jazz. Charleston. Disco. Samba. Tango. When Crow heard Isabella's words, the smile on his face froze. What the hell is Charleston? What is jazz? He knew samba and tango, but he couldn't do it. He could only dance like a group of demons. Disco, Crow said with gritted teeth. He saw someone dancing in a nightclub, and with his dancing skills, he could imitate most of them. Okay. Isabella found the famous dance music in the disco. Half an hour later, Crow looked at Isabella's swollen feet. Sorry, I haven't danced for a long time. Isabella rubbed her painful feet. It's been a long time since she last danced. This guy doesn't know how to dance at all. This is like a trick, and she always steps on her feet. Shall I rub it for you? Crow was a little embarrassed, looking like a coward who wanted to get started but didn't dare to. Isabella didn't say anything, and stretched her feet in front of Crow. Crow, who thought she would refuse, didn't react. Carefully rubbing Isabella's feet, Crow felt a little excited. This was an experience he had never had when picking up girls. It reminded him of his first love. Well, you deliberately approached me, what do you want to do? Isabella asked casually. Crow was stunned. You're too obvious. You can't dance at all. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know how to dance at a disco, Isabella continued. Crow's hands froze and he panicked. He didn't expect to be discovered so quickly, and there were still several steps to go. He was a little confused now, and his mind was a little empty. If he admitted it, he would destroy his big brother Li Qing's plan, but if he didn't admit it, it wouldn't make sense. This put him in a dilemma. If it was the big brother, how would he deal with this situation? Hey, big brother. He suddenly remembered the big brother's quotes that he stole from Dongxiu. He racked his brains to recall the above content. After a moment of silence, the crow said in a low voice, "Yes, I approached you on purpose. I have liked you since the first time I saw you." The crow came clean. Isabella was unmoved. Although she had a slight liking for this man, this liking was not enough for the two to engage in communication. The crow continued, "From the first time I saw you, I felt that your existence was like air." Isabella was stunned for a moment. "Air? I don't have a sense of existence." The crow raised his head and looked at Isabella affectionately. "No, I can't live without you." Isabella trembled all over. No one had ever said such sincere, earthy, love words to her. At this time, the unique sensibility of the women of the beautiful country surged into her heart. "Kiss me." The crow suspected that he had heard it wrong. Isabella repeated, "Kiss me." The crow was sure that what Isabella said was true. Long live Big Brother's quotes. The two were immersed in a passionate kiss, and unconsciously began to peel off each other's shell. "No. Don't be here. Go to the lounge." Without saying a word, Crow picked up Isabella and ran towards the lounge. Half an hour later, Crow leaned against the head of the bed panting. He never thought he could last so long. Is this love? Isabella also had a lingering look on her face, lying on the bed tiredly. "Chen, what do you do?" Isabella asked curiously. In fact, she had some doubts when they met in the orphanage last time, and asked a private detective to investigate. Everything was the same as Crow said. They have been volunteers in different orphanages for several days. "I am a supervisor in a multinational company." "What about you, Isabella?" Isabella looked a little unhappy. "Sorry, I am a married woman."